Hey folks, it's us, podcasting wonderkins John Bishop and Lucas Southworth.
Although this is a podcast about cars, it is not age appropriate for the target demographic of these films, as we usually end up talking about the reproductive organs of Lightning McQueen.
Alright, now let's take a look under the hood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kachat. It's the only podcast brave enough to ask the question, hey, what's up with cars? I'm Lucas Southworth.
And I'm John Bishop.
Nice. You know, we forgot to say literally any part of that in last week's episode. I guess just because we were A, so freaked out about Mater being the president, and B, so relieved that Trump will one day not be the acting president.
Mm-hmm. And this week, we're going hardcore on the structure because, quite frankly, I'm feeling a bit under the weather.
Womp womp. Yeah, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
We had an idea for an intro in which we sang, or I guess maybe just read the lyrics to Drowning Pools, Let the Bodies Hit the Floor. Or is it just hit the floor? Who knows? Or let the bodies? Who knows?
I would go for maybe just bodies.
Yeah, but we didn't want to do that because we're both tired and John is apparently not feeling too great.
Mm-hmm.
So pretend we did that because that's what this week is about. Bodies. Dead ones, specifically.
Dead bodies. Dead bodies of all kinds, or just car dead bodies?
Vehicle dead bodies.
Or the opposite. What if we talked about human dead bodies?
I mean, if we can relate it, which, as I'm sure, if you're thinking the same thing I'm thinking, then yeah, we could relate it to
All
the
right.
cars first.
Sounds good to me.
But I think we should maybe start a little more basic, a little more reined in, and just talk about what do they do with the cars after they die.
Okay.
We'll get to the humans and how we can connect it a little later. Well, let's maybe discuss car burial or death traditions.
Okay. So
what do we know, John?
We do know that cars can be crushed into cubes in our world and in theirs.
Well, that does lead me into the question from Liz.
Okay, let's go for it.
Both of us, our significant others, are named Elizabeth. They ask us questions. We don't tell you which one's which. That's the whole joke. This week comes from one of them, and it's, what if they just crush them into cubes to get rid of them?
Okay, so not recycled, but also not preserved?
I think when we were talking about it, we were comparing it to, like, burial seems fairly one-to-one for cars. Like, if there is some sort of burial rite, it would just be they bury the cars. But maybe cubing them is more akin to cremation.
Okay. So more akin as in they just straight up melt them down?
You know, we didn't get that far, but is that why they crush cars into cubes? Is it to just make them take up less space, or to make them melt better?
They make them take up less space, and then they just stack large cube-based hunks of metal.
Sure.
It's like Lego for adults who also have to deal with bad smell.
Well, that's one way to think of it. So I think I like what you're going with like melting down the materials, being like full cremation, full, like even maybe more full than like human rites of cremation, of like returning to the world. But cubing them maybe just be like an in-between between burial and cremation, then, of just like it puts them somewhere.
Okay. Now, we're not talking about the very obvious thing we should be talking about. We're talking about these cars.
Yeah.
We're talking about crushing up their bodies.
Yeah.
We're not talking about crushing up their squishy bits, are we?
We're not talking about the squishy bits, Johnny, no.
Hmm.
Okay. That
Hmm. What happens to the squishy bit? Do they keep it in the cube?
Now that's interesting because, like, even if they don't cube it, keeping the squishy bit in the car and then burying it, that's like a ready-made coffin, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Almost like Egyptians, like the pharaohs, like they're buried with like their possessions, only like it's
Which does bring
them
me to my
sort of.
fun fact of the day.
Okay, go for it, Johnny.
All right. When looking into this fact that I remembered from my childhood, uh, there was a very rich man who decided he wanted to be buried in his car. It was a $1 million Bentley. That's the quote from everplans.com.
Oh
And
man.
the trouble with this story was a lot of people were angry that this man was wasting this valuable car. And the man essentially retorted, I'm being buried with my possession, a thing that I care about that has a lot of value. But I'm giving up something that has a lot more value that I'd like everyone else to consider giving up when they're dead, and that's my organs. So this very
Okay.
rich man was buried with his very expensive car and used that as a time to spread a message of donating your organs, which is important and valuable and nice. That's
Huh.
my fun fact of the day.
That's a very interesting because like I can see a little bit where people are coming from with like don't bury this car. But like
Mm-hmm.
he turned it around pretty well. Good for
Mm-hmm.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Signed up to be an organ donor, probably. So there's precedent of people being was he buried with it or buried in it? Like I was discussing like it would be his coffin almost.
I've seen many a thing where people are buried in the car, and I
Uh-huh.
feel like he was buried in the car, but I am gonna need to look for a minute just to see.
I think we can probably assume he was buried in it because like just buried sort of near it is kind of weird. Unless again you are an Egyptian pharaoh and just have a bunch of stuff, then like you wake up in the room and you're like, here's all of my things. But if it's just
Lucas,
one thing, be in it.
oh
Go for it.
Lucas,
Uh-huh.
Lucas, oh Lucas.
What's
Nope,
up?
nope, nope, nope. He's not dead.
Oh, he just has plans to be buried in this car.
Nope, 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 nope.
Okay.
He buried his car.
He's not in it
He's not in it.
because he's
Nope,
alive.
nobody's in it.
Because he's alive?
Yep, he's
Yeah.
alive.
Is he gonna
His
d-
car
dig
has
it
been
up?
buried. Nope, he wanted to bury his car so he can, quote, drive around the afterlife in style.
Okay, now this is okay. I've flipped back around. Not on his message about organ donation. Organ donation is super noble and very important. But no, yeah, just burying the car ahead of your death, separate from you. That's a little. That's no, I don't like that.
Now I'll go ahead and read this quote.
Uh huh.
People condemn me because I wanted to bury a $1 million Bentley. In fact, most people bury something a lot more valuable than my car.
Sure.
And then he goes on to say, they bury hearts, livers, lungs, eyes, kidneys. This is absurd. So many people waiting for a transplant, and you will bury your healthy organs that will save so many lives. So it was a statement that he did not want to wait until he was dead to make.
I don't know, man. Are they?
And it was a way to kick off Brazil's National Organ Donation Week.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe when he dies, they will dig a hole and find the Bentley and put him in it and then rebury it. That's fine. I mean, it's all fine when it comes down to it, I guess. It's
I th-
his car. He can bury it if he wants to, but like,
I think the idea is he wants to have his body used as much as possible after he's dead, and he
great.
doesn't necessarily care if he is buried.
Okay. I'm not going to figure this guy out.
Which brings me, Lucas, to what if this man is burying this car so that when he dies, his
He'll
soul
become it.
will go into the car and
Okay.
rise from the grave as unto a zombie.
Okay. So, okay. Now, okay. You're saying that this real person has buried a car, so he will be reborn in the Cars verse, not necessarily in the Cars verse, but as his car, maybe beginning the Cars verse.
I'm not saying that's his reason for doing it. I'm
You're
just
saying it might
saying
happen.
we don't know that that's not his reason for doing it.
And again, whether or not it's his reason, it might happen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe this
Mm-hmm.
is the formula to
We
get
don't
to
know
Cars from
that this isn't
Cars.
how it works.
Okay,
We do know that he would have to be the last person who drove the car.
which I gotta assume he was. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and the only way he could have messed this up.
As if he never drove the car.
Yeah, I was worried about that, him being a rich person owning a car. Uh, but B, if just to like get it positioned to go into the hole, like one of the construction workers just had to like jump in it real quick and back it up a little bit, then
Oh no.
it's ruined.
This worker who's just trying to do his job accidentally stole this car body.
Yeah, and when he goes, you know, maybe he'll be the car. Now, does he'll be the car, but like buried 6 feet underground,
That's not a
which
problem for
is
Zombie Car.
yeah, zombie car could escape that probably. Get some serious damage, but you know, that's fine, I guess.
Yep. Yep, yep, yep.
that's that's fine, I guess. Okay, let me rewind my brain a bit to find what we were talking about. Is the squishy bit in the car whenever whatever happens?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Or do they have a separate right for them? Okay. I think it's really important to determine if the car is considered part of them or not. Because, like, if it's considered a tool or, like, you know, an Iron Man suit, I could see them just burying the squishy bit and fully just recycling the car bits.
Mm-hmm.
But even if it's, like, considered clothes, like, people ain't buried naked most of the time.
True, true. But we are naked under our clothes.
Well, yeah, I guess, man. Uh,
And when they're in their car forms, the
yeah,
thing they think of as clothing would be their paint job.
yeah.
So what if they take the squishy bit out and paint it?
Horrifying. I hate that.
Good, good, good.
So we're not saying that is my answer. But
Fair
I
enough.
think I think if they bury the cars, which we still haven't determined that they do, uh, which I'll bring up some evidence that maybe they don't after a while. I think if they bury them, no matter what, squishy bits in car, because it either works as clothing if they're in a giant casket of some sort, or as the casket itself.
Hmm.
But like cremation, I could see now. Okay, because I could see like them separating the car from the squishy bit and cremating the squishy bit and recycling the car bits because those seem thematically similar.
Mm-hmm.
But would the recycling just sort of take care of the squishy bit part too?
You see, the squishy bit is going to be organic, and organic things tend to be able to break down a lot more effectively. So maybe they just don't worry about it.
They
Maybe
just
it's even
sort
a
of
situation where, with the cremation process, they set a heat to a certain degree, and then the flesh just kind of gets burnt out.
yeah, and like I was gonna say, like usually with cremation there is something very symbolic in like spreading the ashes, like returning them to a place that they really jive with or whatever. But like I don't know, if they just get cremated while they're being recycled, then I feel like the ashes would get mixed in with the like metal, which seems like really thematically powerful for like, yeah, you're fully going into helping our car society progress.
Now, this brings me to yet another fun fact of the day.
Okay, lay it on me.
However, this one isn't going to be as factual. It's a factoid that I have seen that is almost certainly true, but I do not have the source in front of me right now. And it's
Sure.
the idea that there were cultures in the past that used to try and imbue their weapons and armor with the spirit of an animal. So they would
Okay.
take the animal or parts of it, pretty much bone, and they would melt that into the forge of the weapon. Now, the thing is, organic creatures on this earth are carbon based life forms.
Sure.
That means they have a good amount of carbon in them. And the carbon, when mixed with steel, well, not steel, with iron, uh, created a very rudimentary form of steel, meaning that in trying to imbue their weapons with some sort of spiritual power, they were actually making their weapons stronger by having this living thing be inside of it.
I really hope that factoid's correct because that's cool as hell, man.
Yep.
One of you look that up. Tell us if it's right.
Yeah. Do it for us.
And we don't know what the squishy bit is. Maybe it just every generation of metal gets stronger and stronger as it's reused and has more, I don't know, magic car energy, car person energy, and like the carbon and whatnot put into it.
Hmm. Now, this does bring me to something that is unfortunate in regards to specifically this. Uh, Fun fact of the day number three: uh,
Sure thing.
95% of all vehicles are reclaimed in regards to reduce, reuse, recycle. So that's nice. That's from popularmechanics.com. But the thing is, cars, at least recent cars, a lot of the metal is aluminum, and introducing carbon into aluminum isn't going to make steel. So by introducing that organic bit, you're not going to be turning iron into steel, so that strengthening might not be anything at all.
Okay. But I don't care, man. I liked the thematic of that. I'm gonna say it does make the cars stronger and stronger.
Who knows?
Uh
Maybe there's some other base life form, the squishy bit, and maybe that, when fused with aluminum, makes it work better.
yeah. There's the science just isn't there yet. That's why we're having these early hypotheses.
Hmm.
Hypotheses? That sounded better.
Yep.
Uh but one wrench I'll throw into this discussion that hasn't even gotten that far yet is that we have had a discussion in the past uh, about burial rites and what we think could happen. And that was based around a certain scene in the Radiator Springs 500 and a half, uh,
Okay.
in which Lightning McQueen and a group of just sort of jerk other racers stumble into a forest that has a bunch of empty car husks in it.
Okay.
And we weren't sure that this was like a cemetery. I swear I can remember like seeing a headstone in there somewhere, but I could be misremembering it.
Hmm.
But I think we went back and forth on either A, they just sort of put the husks out in nature and let them sort of decay and rust, and these had been there so long that the squishy bits had fallen away because you could see inside of them, or B, this was a grisly murderer's like dump site.
Not just any grisly murderer, probably
Probably
good
Mater.
old Mater. Uh,
Probably Mater.
but also, there was a third proposed reasoning behind it, and that was, of
Good.
course, Elephant Graveyard,
Yeah.
where the cars just realize they're about to die, so they just drive
Yes.
off to this land to die.
I forgot that that's the thing we've said is that the cards do elephant graveyards.
They
But
have
yeah,
an inherent understanding of when they are about to die, and then they just have an instinct to go to a place to be dead.
that's very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Not as powerful as BigThink.com's culture dash religion forward slash Norse dash rituals question mark rebel TITEM equals one pound sign.
Listen,
It's too much.
yeah,
It's an article about
yeah,
Vikings unwittingly making their sword stronger by using bones.
nice. So we do have two very thematically powerful hypotheses here. And honestly, the being buried and the car serving as a casket is not thematically unpowerful.
Mm-hmm. It's a little bit on brand. It's what it is.
So maybe maybe different cultures, like different strokes for different folks. Or like just personal choice as you die, as like the choice of whether to be cremated or buried. Uh, but there's a third option, and it's going and elephant graveyarding.
Now, if people were to do that, I don't know how that could be anything but just the worst.
No, yeah, translated to humans, that's pretty grotesque.
Because these are vehicles. They're
Yeah,
meant to be able to transport and to transport themselves.
gotta remember that they're vehicles.
The closer to death humans are, the worse they are at traveling in a lot of situations.
Oh, yeah. I was more thinking about the pile of human bodies just somewhere, but
See, that's what I'm saying is that my big concern is that yes, there's going to be this big pile of human bodies, but it's also going to be very close to where everyone is.
yeah, they can't
It
get
will
too
not be
far
far
out.
away.
Yeah.
So,
And
yes,
also just
pile of bodies, horrific, but also the fact that it's right there.
yeah, and just watching people do it would be sad.
Oh, hey, is that Steve? What's Steve doing? Oh no, he's got that look in his eyes. I think yep, he's walking over to the pile. Oh no, he's dropping off flowers. He's fine. He's probably got another week.
Deeply upsetting. Uh
All right. So, we've talked about the subject of crushing the bodies. We've talked about the innards. We've got more to say about that, I'm sure. But
yeah.
let's go ahead and let's see. A good third to halfway through this episode, talk about why we're talking about this.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do the wiki quote of the day of the day.
All right.
This week we are going over to World of
Give me
Cars
that
Drive.
wiki quote of the day of the day.
Okay, thank you. This
Thank you.
week we are going over to worldofcarsdriving.fandom.com/wiki/Steve underscore Hercel.
That's a
Now,
strange last name.
yeah, I've pronounced it to maybe hide a little bit why we're talking about it. But if you just go right here to the first sentence of the article, Steve Hercel is an American hearse.
Oh,
So, yeah,
now, Lucas, for those listening at home who do not know, what's a hearse?
hearse is what we put coffin in to go to cemetery.
Huh. We put coffin in to go to cemetery.
Yeah,
Uh, coffin. For those
human
listening at
coffin.
home, who, what is a coffin?
Coffin is where human go to go and ground.
Wait,
Uh,
humans don't go in ground. Why would you put
uh,
human in ground?
After they've died.
Oh,
Yeah, wooden box.
oh.
Yeah,
So there's a coffin in that character in this Cars film for kids.
potentially. Yeah,
Who
pretty high potential of that.
so this character is a machine designed to carry coffins, which
That's true.
carry deceased human beings.
Yeah.
Now, Lucas, why would that be a thing?
Now that's an excellent question, John. And just to dispel any thoughts you might have about it, he's like a normal sized one. Car can't fit in there.
So,
Pit
just to
pit
make
crew
sure,
can't fit in there.
they they named him
Yeah.
a pun
Yeah.
on the fact that he is in fact a hearse,
Yes.
and they in no way changed his design for him to be the sort of hearse that would carry anything other than humans.
Yeah, it is. It's an issue. I will say his part is so small that he literally doesn't even have a bio. Which, if you've listened to this podcast before, you know that every Tom, Jane, and Sarah out there in the Cars verse has a name and a biography just somewhere that ends up on the wiki, and we read it. But I
And
will go ahead.
we got to give an example of how obscure this gets. There is a character in one of the films that is fully bioed out because they are a character who is a fan of another character who is on screen just to fly over a stand.
I was thinking of her too. I can't remember her name off the top of my head because why would I? But her literal only part is she's on screen for 3 seconds and she looks up at a plane flying over and is like, "Ah, cool." She doesn't say that, but she looks like that.
Okay, so we've got a character who is a little girl who is a fan of a jet,
Yeah.
and she gets a bio. But all we know about this character, who is a fully named character, is that they are a hearse
Uh
and
huh.
their name has hearse in it.
Yeah, it's wild to me that they named him, but did not expand on like who he is or his whole deal. He is in Cars 3, if you're wondering. There's a screenshot of him here. I think he's literally just on the road for a second. Probably just an Easter egg, like, oh, there's a hearse. But while he doesn't have a bio, I gotta say, one thing he does have is a die-cast car model.
So, this character was
Yeah.
so important to the creators of these films that they gave him a name
Uh-huh.
based on what he is, and
Yes.
they have a die cast model of this character.
Yeah, like a little Hot Wheels of him. You can go and buy it. Which I gotta say, Johnny, never before, up until I found this wiki entry for Steve Hercel, have I ever been like, maybe I'll get one of the little die casts and I could start a collection of them since I do this dumb show about them. But the second I saw that he was available, the hearse with eyes and a mouth, I was like, I might as well throw it on my Christmas list as well as a few other weird ones, like the Pope Mobile. The Pope Mobile also has a diecast, if you're wondering. It does. I'll go ahead and answer. It does have the Pope inside it, who is also a car, but we can't get too wrapped up in that right now. Like it. This is the we make fun of the wikis because they're a
Bonkers?
little silly. But it's just sparse. They've done what they can. They've got a trivia entry here just in case you didn't get it. And it says his last name is a pun on hearse, which yeah, we did get that, but it's important. I agree with them doing it. It's an important thing to list just in case someone doesn't get it.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's where I'm going to have to disagree with you on a fundamental level.
Sure.
I don't think that that is an accurate way of putting it. I think that the fact that this is so barren tells us so much about this character. The
Okay.
fact that we don't have more information is just leagues more information. The the only things they want us to know about this character are that he's a hearse and that he exists. They want us to know for a fact there is a character in the third Cars film, a movie that has heavy themes and references to getting older and possibly dying.
And death itself, with the heavy emphasis on Doc
A
Hudson
a
being
character
gone.
who has passed away.
Yeah.
So this character in this movie, with a strange emphasis on death, is all about death.
Yeah.
And they want you to know two things: he does exist, and he is death, destroyer of worlds.
Are you saying Steve Herschel is the Grim Reaper?
I'm saying, what is the Grim Reaper?
Eh,
A
Grim
figure
Reaper's.
clad in black who
Yeah.
ferries people into the great beyond.
Yeah, okay, man.
What is a hearse?
No, it's those things you said also. It's also those things you said.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So, so for sure, I am weirdly confident there's at least one person working on this film who really wanted to include death as a character.
The evidence is there, man. Because the issue is they did put a hearse in their film, And they didn't have to. No one was holding a gun to their head and said, "Hey, you got to do this." It wasn't important to the plot. It wasn't like we were like, "Oh, this makes no sense." There wasn't a half a second shot of a hearse in the background earlier. So how could have Cruz Ramirez won the race?
Mm-hmm.
They chose based on nothing else to just throw Steve Hercel in this movie, and it's rough.
See, and again, there's just so many like important distinctions. They didn't throw this hearse into any movie.
It wasn't Cars 1, Cars 2, Planes 1, Planes Fire and Rescue.
Yeah, they included it in specifically the movie focused most on death. They included this character who has no other distinguishable characteristics other than being a hearse named Hearse. They included that and specifically didn't give you anything else. The lack of anything else, the fact that it was this movie, and what he is, and the fact that you're only supposed to know that that's what he is, all of those things are screaming to me this character is meant to be death. And it's not supposed to be scary. He's not supposed to be this big, terrifying, menacing creature. He's just another guy. He's just there. He's there, and we all have to accept that.
Yeah, a bit of a memento mori in the middle of their art piece that they did. That's some art history classes showing up for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but okay, we're we're gonna get to the implications of a human-sized hearse in this world, just based on are there humans dying in this world? But if he's the Grim Reaper,
Mm-hmm.
if he is Death himself, did Lightning die in the middle of the race? And Cruz took over for him, and it's a bit more symbolic.
I think it was possibly even something else of maybe he made the right choice.
Mm,
Maybe if
he's
Lightning had
okay.
kept pushing himself too hard to finish this race, maybe he would have died.
Okay, I like that way better than like my uh nonsense like YouTube uh, like conspiracy. Was
Was
Lightning
Lightning
dead the
dead the
whole
whole
time?
time? Yeah.
No.
He wasn't. No, he almost
No.
died. And there the specter of death was just looming there waiting.
Yeah, even if it was if even if like Steve Hercel is not Death himself, he maybe he was a literal memento mori to Lightning, a reminder of death. Like
Mm-hmm.
Lightning just saw him, and that sort of put it in perspective for him. He's like, I love racing, but it's not worth dying over. What was I thinking? No, I'm old, and there's a hearse right there.
And I gotta give the youth a chance to just go out there and prove themselves.
I like to think that in this version, if this is the truth, Lightning's so freaked out, like he says, like, "Oh, I gotta give you a chance, yeah." That maybe he's not even considering I'm so old. He's just like something's going to go wrong, and I need to get out of here. And like I like Cruz, but better her than me.
She's more likely to survive the inevitable assault on our lives.
Maybe, okay, maybe Lightning would have died in the bit where Jackson was pushing Cruz up against the wall and she does the Hudson Hornet jump over the top of him. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
Lightning couldn't have done that. So by replacing Cruz in there, of course, Lightning was falling behind and wouldn't have been in that position. If you've seen the movie, it's a ridiculous premise. But,
He was only falling behind because his heart wasn't in it.
yeah. Uh, yeah, whatever. But yeah, I really like that Lightning saw Steve Hercel and it shook him to his core, and that's what made him. That's what partially made him realize his limitations. Finally,
I believe we've said it before. We've talked about that Cars 3 is a movie that is extremely respectful of the ideas of aging and trying to respect your elders while also accepting the youth trying to move in, making room for the new up and comers. And it's really just a tale of aging and accepting aging. But if we have this character that is the specter of death that hangs over and forces you to accept this sort of thing, is that better? Is that worse? What does that mean that people have to be forcibly reminded of their death to be willing to accept the future?
I mean, I can see that sort of playing out similarly in our universe. Like, uh, I don't know that it says too much specifically about the Cars verse because I could see someone pushing themselves too hard and seeing, I don't know, like an ad for a funeral home and being like, yeah, maybe I should stop it.
Yeah.
Maybe I should not do that.
There's a strangely prevalent thing where a lot of like weightlifter athletes will push themselves too hard and their hearts will give out. And it's one of those things where you have to realize that there is a limit to how much you should push. And sometimes you need a reminder to think, I am only human. I should not try to exceed every day because someday that's going to catch up to me.
Yeah, I guess good. That's, yeah. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
But if Steve Hercel was not just a thematic choice to either be a literal or figurative specter of death to push lightning out of the game, and just was a literal hearse who just likes racing, probably brings down the crowd around him a bit if he shows up and sits next to him, but that's not here nor there.
I don't know. I don't think he was a particular bummer of a character.
Yeah, I don't know,
Again,
man.
he was just another guy.
Yeah. But okay, here does he have a human dead body in him? We've talked
No,
about the thematic implications. Let's talk about the literal implications of a hearse.
as we discussed last week,
Yeah.
uh, yes, of course he does. You never see the manufacturer, but the manufacturer is in fact underground dwelling humans who make sure everything runs smoothly. And whenever they die and need to be taken to some other location, they are put in a coffin, and this grim specter of death just ferries them on their way.
I mean, okay.
Yep.
And he does join a class of characters that we've always had issue with,
Mm-hmm.
of like why do they still exist in this universe of like Miss Fritter the bus who no car could fit on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she even says she works for the school district, but like how are you like a counselor? Because you can't be a school bus. Uh, or
Well,
like they're
maybe she is a teacher who drives to the students.
okay, sort of like a reverse homeschool,
Mm-hmm. It's a homeschool, but it's a home to you school.
school to home. You're a school
E.T.
home.
phone home.
Yep, that's what it is. Uh, so it's not like we haven't had issue with like and like taxis exist and like ambulances that couldn't possibly fit a car in them, etc., etc. So we usually determine like I think we've said like the ambulance is like a medical professional. It doesn't necessarily ferry the cars, but like, it does medicine on them. Miss
Mm-hmm.
Fritter works for the school district. She doesn't ferry the cars.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Steve is just like a mortician.
He just prepares the bodies or analyzes them after they have passed.
Yeah, or like a funeral home director or like forensics person, like you were saying.
Maybe even he's a grief counselor.
Yeah, that would be great. And
It's
like,
something we could probably use a lot more of in this world.
yeah, absolutely. Uh, and like, obviously, we don't want to force these cars into these positions, but it seems like their society does.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're born a war thing, you're a war thing.
Yeah.
Although, Dusty Crophopper is staring us in the face saying, are you sure about
He did
that?
have to be surgically altered.
That's true. He, yeah, that is a thing that happened in that movie. God, I do not like Planes 1. Uh, but it does seem like a fairly common theme that, like, I don't know, maybe Steve's one of those things. He's or he could be a gravedigger. I don't know. Probably not that. How would he do that?
I mean,
Poorly.
just thinking about it, that man, that rich man, he buried a car.
It's a big hole.
That's gonna be so ridiculous. One major problem we have in our world is that in big cities, graveyards fill up real fast,
Yeah.
and we don't have anywhere to put those bodies.
Yeah.
It's a reason why the catacombs exist. It's it's unfortunate, but we need to find a way to not bury bodies. We need to figure out something better to do because sure, it's a form of respect for the dead, but at the same time, we shouldn't let our respect for the dead impact the future of the living negatively. So I'm all for, and I've probably said this on the podcast, but in case I haven't, I like the idea of being made into a tree and
I think you
also a
have, yeah.
gemstone and also a weapon. But the weapon, of course, would be one of my more silly, oh, that's just a neat idea of, oh, look, here's a sword made of me.
That would, I mean, it'd be cool, man. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it wouldn't be cool. Might not be the, like, I don't know, symbolic comfort that your loved ones might want, but it'd be cool as hell, man.
True, but like, also think of how powerful that's gonna make someone feel. Like, sure, I did lose my father, but at the same time, in losing my father, I gained this
This
ancient blade of
awesome sword.
daddom that makes me so powerful.
That's got to be at least like a +1 or 2 in D&D. That
Hmm.
has to have something.
My father is with me always, literally in the form of a sword that I carry.
He's right here, and
uh,
if you don't back up, he'll be right over in you. That
mm-hmm.
came out a little wrong, but I stand by it.
Absolutely.
So where
Okay.
are these giant human graveyards?
See, I'm starting to think that even with our old theory of, by old, I mean last week, theory of the manufacturer being people,
Sure.
after a certain point, you don't need that many people.
Yeah.
Because you just need it to be, oh, they can make parts, which can be very automated. They can oversee small corrections and whatnot. They can have things built, but generally, a lot of the vehicles are going to be able to do a lot of the work for them. So maybe it's a 1-to-1, and we already talked about how maybe it's like 1/8 of the population
Yeah.
of our Earth itself. So if we only had 1/8 the humans, there'd be a lot more space to keep the bodies, and even still, we could always go the Soylent route and say that they just recycle the bodies of the people.
Yeah. I will say that doesn't line up with Steve Hercel being, necessary.
I mean,
Uh
he could be a food delivery service.
oof. Yeah, Uber Eats, am I right?
Oh,
I didn't like that very much. Strike it from the record. I'm not going to edit it out because I think you all should hear it, but I'm
it's
sorry I
too
said it.
good, but also it's deeply troubling, which is why
Yeah,
it
I didn't.
has to stay.
Yeah. But even if they don't eat the people, which, gosh, we always come back to that, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, maybe, I mean, we already say that they live underground. Like,
Yep.
maybe he's being transported to a giant human catacomb, or whoever is in Steve. I like to think there was no one in Steve when he stopped to watch the Florida Speedway Piston Cup final at the end of Cars 3, because seems like a fireable offense.
I don't know, because, like, I have to assume that there's a whole process of getting the bodies in and out, and there's probably just an amount of freedom there where, like, okay, it's understood that sometimes you're just going to have a body in you for a while.
I don't like that, John, but
That's
I
fair.
mean,
But hey, sometimes you just have a dead body inside of you.
yeah, I guess. I'm going to stand by that. It was Steve's day off. Uh,
And I'm
cause
okay with
like,
that.
yeah, cause I don't know, he's going to a race. Like, just get your job done, man,
Now,
before you go to the Piston Cup finals.
now, Lucas, let's get a
Yeah.
little bit further into weaving some theories together.
Okay.
All right.
That's the whole podcast, is it not?
True, but I'm weaving theories that we already have together.
Okay, sure.
All right. The manufacturer is people. People are creatures that live underground, out of view of society.
Yeah,
Okay, we've got that theory. Then we've got the theory that there are these basically deities, these, what are they called? Demigods, the
yeah.
trains.
Okay,
We've got the idea of society is running because of these small people hidden behind the scenes. We've got these trains that we say wherever they go, things seem to just be created.
yeah.
We also know that this is post-apocalyptic future.
In this version, in this theory, in this version, yes.
So, my theory is that it's a Snowpiercer future.
Okay, okay. Origin stories, Snowpiercer.
The train technology advances. People work on this technology and then they start living inside of the trains and then they start becoming one with the trains. Do you mind if I spoil the big reveal at the end of Snowpiercer?
I know the big reveal at the end of Snowpiercer, and if you don't and haven't seen it and want to, I will say it's a super good movie. A and B, the reveal is like super intense and good. So if you have want to watch the movie, just like skip ahead a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, go ahead.
All right. So the thing that keeps the train running, it's like the Soylent reveal of, oh, they feed the people this disgusting mishmash of just biology and bugs. But then you find out that the reason the train's able to run at all is because it was designed to have people able to repair it constantly by living inside of it. And those people have to be small enough to fit inside of it comfortably, which is why they've been abducting children the entire movie. Children are inside of these creatures, these these demigod trains, keeping them running.
Oof. Okay. Yeah.
So the weaving is that this is a post-apocalyptic future in which the demigod trains have the manufacturer inside of them, building, creating, fixing, and they're just living inside of the train in different, like, small little areas in this terrible, terrible existence, going about their days. And whenever one needs to be replaced, you call up good old Grim Reaper, and you have the dead manufacturer bodies just carried away. And that's how the manufacturer exists, and that's how demigod trains exist, and that's how society functions.
That sucks a lot, man. Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot. But I mean, it fits Snowpiercer. It fits our existing theories well enough, I guess. It fits decently enough. Sure, I'll give it to you. I won't personally believe it, but I'll say you've done enough legwork to make it so I'm like, yeah, I can't say it's not true.
All right, all right. Boy, howdy, that is an upsetting thing to think about.
Ain't it though?
Yep.
It is. I'll answer that myself. Yes, it is. Uh oh man. I had a whole thing I was gonna talk about, but you fully distracted me with this Snowpiercer stuff. Now I was just thinking about Snowpiercer. Again, watch Snowpiercer if you haven't. If you listen to that even against our warnings, sorry, but still watch it. It's super good. Chris Evans is in it.
Chris Evans is in fact in it, and so is John Hurt.
Yeah, that's probably true. I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah. Do we feel like okay? I feel like we've super expanded on burying the cars.
Mm-hmm.
We've super expanded on cremation slash recycling. We've super expanded on Steve Hercel, both for cars and for people. I feel like we haven't done enough legwork on Cube Crush
All
Cube.
right. So from what I have seen, the idea behind Cube Crush is that you crush the cube,
Sure.
the flatten the car,
Yeah.
the shoot, I was gonna try and like turn that into a Sweeney Todd thing, but
No.
again,
Yeah.
I'm not feeling it.
I could sort of feel it. Like
Yep.
the shape of the face. Were you doing Pirelli?
A little bit.
I cut to the hair, I shave a the
To
face.
shave the face and
Yeah.
shave the beard. But so what that does is they crush it, they compact it, and then from what I understand, after that point, they tear it to scraps so that it can be little bits of car that are melted down and sorted.
Okay, so it may be just like a step one in the cremation process.
Yeah, it's not
Okay.
the be all end all, it's a part of the process.
They
I
just
I figure that
crush
has to be
them down
true.
in the meantime, you know?
Mhm. I figure that has to be true because if 95% are reclaimed, then why on earth are they crushing these cars?
Yeah, yeah. But I do want to talk a bit about I don't remember his name. He's the spy car who dies at the beginning of Cars 2 by being cube crushed.
Hmm.
Is that just like would that be an equivalent? I mean, obviously it would be an equivalent to a human being crushed into a small cube, but would it also be a sort of equivalent of like a human being buried alive in a weird way?
I think it's more akin to just being cremated alive
Yeah,
because
which
uh,
also happens almost
buried
in
alive,
Toy
it's
Story 3.
a long process. It takes a bit for you to suffocate, but like that's the torture is you're stuck in there and you can't do anything about it. But this one is more just, oh, you're going to experience an excruciating amount of pain and you'll be dead fairly soon.
Although I will say, what if the squishy bit is significantly smaller than we thought,
Now,
and
how small are we talking?
small enough to fit in the cube? Okay,
Small
that doesn't
enough to
make any
fit in the
sense.
cube.
That
I
does that
mean, if you
it
done
doesn't make any
squished it,
sense.
if you done squished it, then it's
Yeah, squishy
squished.
bit can't fit in there.
So who knows?
Yeah. Oh, I remembered what I wanted to say earlier. I went back to the cubes as like I don't remember, but we've talked a lot about cars, and I think we can assume the same sort of goes for the pitties, the forklifts.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to talk a bit about planes and boats because I don't
Okay.
know, boats just seem like I don't know they sink. That's what they do. A burial at sea for a being that lives its life at sea. You know.
Now, from what I understand, when a boat is being retired, if it's a very large boat, they just bring it up out of the water slowly and then take it apart there. So there is no crushing for this vehicle if it's a very large boat. It's just basically you pick apart at the corpse until it's gone.
Which also is thematically similar to me to cremation.
Hmm.
Maybe again with a few more steps and a bit more meticulous.
Now, I was
Uh,
thinking more along the lines of this is very much like in Pacific Rim when the creatures would die and be scavenged.
Now, okay, that's pretty dark and good. There we
Hmm.
go. You got there, Johnny.
And you've got good old Hellboy selling your dangly bits because it's supposed to be an aphrodisiac.
Yeah, he does do that in Pacific Rim. And
Hmm.
we've connected these movies to Pacific Rim, so maybe there's a culture of it.
Hmm. It's just more acceptable to take apart and use the parts of a deceased body.
And the way we connected it to Pacific Rim is the sort of like mind drift technology.
Hmm.
And like if I remember right, the secondary main character who isn't John Boyega in Pacific Rim 2 Uprising is like a literal like Jaeger scavenger. Like not a kaiju but a Jaeger, so there's also a tradition of doing it on the machines, you know?
Hmm. You take apart the kaiju, you take apart the exosuit. It's just what you do.
Yeah, and maybe after a while they do a lot of work especially in the first one to be like, hey, monsters came so we built our own monsters. There's a line that's almost exactly that in the first one.
Hmm.
uh so maybe the line between jaegers and kaiju just sort of gets a little blurred, and it's just like
I
giant
mean,
beast dies, we take its
as
parts.
as we've talked about, that does happen in the second movie.
Yeah, they literally combine a Jaeger and a Kaiju. Man, I don't
Hmm.
remember Pacific Rim 2 Uprising at all because it's a bad movie.
It's a movie.
Yeah, you can say that much for it. So, yeah, it's just like what is an aircraft carrier but like a kaiju to a car, you know?
Yep. Except one that you used to talk to who was a friend.
Yeah, except fully sentient and your friend Joe.
Now imagine, Lucas, if you will,
Yeah,
that you and I had a friend who was just like 20 feet tall and super big and like was perfectly fine with us just like sometimes like sitting down in a chair that is just grafted onto his back.
I'm already loving this. This sounds like the best possible scenario. Keep going.
I don't have anything else. I'm just very happy about this idea of our friend who is essentially just a giant carrier person, and I love it.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of that myself. Can you imagine, like, I don't know, walking into a meeting? Just, well, it'd have to be an outdoor meeting or something.
No,
Just,
we'll just have buildings that are built for random assortments of very, very large people, mid-sized people, and very, very small people.
yeah, well, the world will change to accommodate our best friend, Large Joseph.
hmm Large Joseph, or as we call him, Joe, and he's just a very friendly guy who likes to carry people.
Yeah, and like he almost sees it as like, I'm this big. It's my way to give back.
And
I
also,
guess.
there's a bit of passion behind it. He feels like it's something that he was born for. It's something he's very good at. And like when he does it, is like, I feel like this is just what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and one day when Large Joseph does shuffle off this mortal coil, we will scavenge him for his parts.
I will take some of his very large bones and I will make swords out of him.
It's what Large Joseph would have wanted.
And if this happens, there is a good chance that if we use more Cars logic, instead of making swords out of him, we'll just make other people out of
We'll
him
make Large Joseph Mark II.
who will have a completely different personality, might be several different robots, might be part of another robot.
You know, like Voltron.
Mm-hmm. Like like Voltron, like any of the Zords, the
Of course, the
Megazords.
swords.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. I hope someday we meet Large Joseph.
Ah, someday soon. Can't come soon enough.
Yeah, I'm tired of walking. Okay. So, normal sized boats, though, I imagine, just get almost elephant graveyard esque. They just know their time and sort of sink, turn off all the stuff that makes them float. I mean, that's not how boats work, but they find a way to sink.
Okay. Now, we have talked about before the possibility of maybe they just go to the Bermuda Triangle and become ghost pirates.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Bermuda Triangle because it would also serve our planes that we haven't talked much about
Mm-hmm.
very
And
well.
maybe this elephant graveyard is just there's a very large triangle in the ocean where a lot of planes and a lot of boats just go to disappear.
Yeah, they know it's their time to
It's
be or not
where
to be, not to be.
it's where the Charybdis lives,
Help me out.
a, a giant Greek beast that was a giant whirlpool that would suck
Yes. Yeah.
ships
Okay.
into it and destroy
Yeah.
it, and also Carpon.
Yeah. No, I got there. I got there after. I mean, you brought me there. I had to ask, and I'm ashamed because I'm the Greek mythology one.
I'm hoping that that one's the Charybdis and not the Scylla.
Yeah, I can never remember.
All right,
Uh,
Charybdis is the enormous whirlpool. Nice.
Congratulations. That's really great, man. I'm so happy for you
In
that
my
you got.
defense, I've been a little bit more fixated on mythology right the past week because I've been playing a lot of Hades.
Oh man, I gotta get into Hades. It looks so good.
I have played probably 60 hours of it, and I've had it for
Yeah.
maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah, I've gotten back into shiny hunting a bit, but then I got a shiny Regirock encounter and I failed it. He ran out of PP
Oh
and struggled
no,
himself to death. It
that's
was very upsetting.
that's devastating. That's why you always keep the master.
Now, I had one, John. I just wasn't keeping track of the PP, and he
Oh
only needed
no.
one struggle to take himself out. So I got very upset and bought Pokemon Crystal on the Virtual Console on the 3DS, and now I'm playing that instead because I can get a guaranteed shiny Gyarados there. I don't have to. I don't have to do any. I don't have to reset 2,000 times.
That's fair enough. Fair enough.
Anyway, oh, this is a joke I haven't done in ages. Anyway, that was our Pokemon podcast called "Gotta Cast 'Em All." Not terrible. Not like not the best. If I'd have to guess, that also exists.
Yeah,
Uh,
probably.
but
It's better than what came to mind immediately for me.
go for it.
So that's podcast chew.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yep.
PCast shoe, that's worse.
Maybe
Anyway,
just podcachu. Nope.
okay. Although of the three, that one's the best. Keep that. TM TM TM. Is there anything else we need to say about cars dying and what happens thereafter?
A whole lot of spooky stuff.
There are ghosts, so there are literally ghosts in the
There
Cars verse.
are literal ghosts, and there also are just terrifying graveyards of just a bunch of exposed bodies.
Yeah. So there's that. This feels like the end of our podcast since we talked about Pokemon just as if we weren't doing a podcast for a while.
Fair enough.
So thanks for listening to that. Anyway, we really appreciate y'all tuning into our podcast, even though we talk about cars maybe 60% of the length of each episode, maybe. And yeah, if you want to send us ideas of stuff to talk about, that'd be great. Clearly, we need it. If you want to send us specific suggestions for our themed episodes, like where we talk about movies that could be connected to cars, or moments that would be weird in cars history, or this car, let's talk about them for a while, the episode. You can do that. We really love it. Or if you just want to check in, say hello, that'd be cool. And you can do all that either at our email, which is thechat@gmail.com, or on our Twitter, which is @thechat. Both of those are one word. Now John says something, and you never know what it's gonna be.
Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Tell anyone and everyone to listen to our podcast.
Okay, well, that's the end of the show. I'm Lucas. He's John. Don't forget to float like a Cadillac.
And sting like a beaver.